Thanks for tuning in live, Proline TV, the Our Lads Football Network. As we continue to preview the upcoming season, we're talking about the AFC South today, the Indianapolis Colts. Kent Sterling, of course, that means it's time to bring him back in. How's it going, Kent?
Good, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for doing this as always.
My pleasure.
It's always fun to find out what's going on with this team. Of course, fans, I'm sure, would really like to finally break through, and I'm sure they're sick of missing the postseason. So there's a lot of that. We talked about that, of course, in our season discussion. So now we're ready to get the season underway. And just to, again, for people who may not be aware for the Colts and how things have gone, last year finished 8-9. It was the second place, though, in the division, and that's gone on now for 4 out of the last 5 years for the Colts, finishing in second. They're 62-69 under Chris Ballard, the GM, with no division titles, 2 playoff appearances, and just 1 playoff win. And they have not made the playoffs in 4 years. They haven't won a playoff game in 6 years, and they haven't won the AFC South in 10 years. So, and they're also now on to their 8th consecutive starting quarterback. I guess that shouldn't be a surprise considering everything I just said. Naming Daniel Jones the quarterback, and I checked your videos out, Ken, about that. So a little bit surprising on your behalf.
Well, I was rooting for Anthony Richardson because I think he's made some strides. And I think with Anthony Richardson, you can kind of get up here. With Daniel Jones, you're kind of a flatline dink and dunk guy. And you hope for the best. You hope that 1 year in 2022 that Daniel Jones put together for the Giants is kind of what you get out of him this year. But if I seem a little bit skeptical, I think I have good reason to be.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, Daniel Jones isn't the most exciting, sexy quarterback addition. I get it. No. But look, hey, this is up to Shane Steichen, isn't it? I mean, he was brought in as an offensive guy, as a quarterback guy. And so if he's every bit as good as the Colts Chris Ballard hopes he can be, then you've got a couple of young quarterbacks. You should be able to make one of them work.
And you really can't blame those guys for making a different decision because the previous 2 years they went with Richardson and it didn't work out so well. They chose to go with Richardson over Minshew in 23, Richardson over Flacco in 24. Richardson injuries and the infamous tap out, cost him games and gave Minshew and Flacco an opportunity to play. But neither of those guys were great shakes either. So this decision is a little bit like Richardson versus Minshew, except Jones is a little bit better than Minshew.
Yeah, look, I don't think any of this is a surprise as far as the way Richardson is developing. I mean, we could have saw this. We talked about it when he was drafted. This is why I think a lot of people were surprised how highly he was drafted, because it was going to take a team to be patient with this kid. This kid had hardly any experience in college. There were a lot of really nice things to like about him, which is obviously why he was chosen so high regarding his tools. But there was also a lot of inexperience. And we have to keep going down this road in the NFL? And I guess that's the thing. How often are we going to keep going down this road of drafting inexperienced college quarterbacks, rushing them into the starting lineup, and then giving up on them right away?
Well, I hope the Colts have done it for the final time. I hope we don't have to go through this anymore in Indianapolis because it's painful. And the pain from it is that Richardson is a really good kid, but he's a kid. He was born in May of 2022, so he's just turned 23, despite the fact that he's got 2 years under his belt. He's still really, really young. I think he was failed in high school and in college by coaches who didn't demand more professionalism from him. He came into the NFL not knowing that quarterbacks don't do this.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
How does he not understand that as a professional quarterback, you can't tap out? How does he not understand as a professional quarterback that one of the easier blitz reads that you're ever going to see, he flat missed in Baltimore and they ear-holed him and they turned his pinky sideways.
Yeah.
I mean, this keeps going on and going on and going on. And you understand kind of Steichen is tired of having a quarterback that needs training wheels. He wants a guy who can just ride on his own. And I totally get it.
Sure.
But this is less interesting. At the very minimum, it's less interesting to watch Daniel Jones play quarterback than Anthony.
We'll get into the win totals, the schedule, the Miami game in a little bit, but let's talk about the depth chart. There are some questions. Obviously, I've got to ask you here, which is why you're on. So let's talk first of all about injuries, because I know there is some injury concerns for the Colts. And I want to start off, first of all, I might as well start off on defense, because they drafted Whaley, the corner, and I know he was going to be an interesting part of that secondary, which was a big problem for them last year. And he's on injured reserve. So what's the status there, as well as any other players, key players that won't be around week 1?
Yeah, and it's a shame that he's not. I don't know where Nick Cross is in terms of his injury. He is slated to start at strong safety. The Colts are very, very guarded with injury information.
Okay.
You don't find out until they got to tell you. And they're very vague in what they do tell you when they have to tell you. And so, lower extremity issue. You don't get ankle sprain.
Okay.
You get lower extremity. So, but Nick Cross is kind of a big one, because I don't know who you play at strong if you don't have Nick Cross. Other than that, Kwity Paye's been on the shelf a little bit, but he's back. You've got Jalen Carlisle at linebacker. You don't really know at this point who's going to start opposite Zaire Franklin at linebacker, because they're going to play a lot of nickel and they'll play some dime, but Kenny Moore is going to be in that slot corner position. So the Colts are going to go with 2 linebackers more often than not. So you've got Joe Bocci, and they kind of like Bocci because Bocci played for Anarumo with the Bengals.
Yep.
And Lou Anarumo coming in as the new defensive quarterback, his scheme is kind of complicated, and it's good to have guys in the room that can say, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do, so Lou doesn't have to explain it to everybody after every rep. And so Bocci's kind of that guy. Other than that, on the defensive side of the ball, you did have problems at the corner position. You had Jalen Jones with a hamstring, and Juju Brent, I think, also had a hamstring. Jones was more severe. Brent was back playing in Cincinnati on Saturday. That's a good thing. But just to be sure, they went out and signed Xavier Howard as their starting cornerback, who's going to line up opposite Mooney Ward. And so they feel pretty good about that position now that they've got Xavier Howard in there. But if Jones and Brent are both healthy, then that becomes a position of strength and depth than being incredibly thin.
Yeah, so that Howard move, even though Wally's out for a while. By the way, how long is Wally out for? Does anybody know?
The whole year. He's done.
Okay. So the Howard, and if Wally wasn't hurt, do they sign Howard?
No.
Okay.
They would have started Howard. Or they would have started Wally.
Wally, okay.
Yeah.
So he was playing.
I really
well.
liked Wally. Wally looked great. Yeah. And what a shame, they had that the joint practice and he got hurt there and it was done. And a real shame, because he looked, a lot of people said that when they drafted Wally that they had shot a little bit high with him, drafting him in the 3rd round. But judging by what he did in camp and OTAs and mini camp, he was really good. Yeah. He was a football player and not just kind of a cover corner guy, but a guy who'd stick his nose in there, make tackles. He looked really good.
Yeah, we talked about that I was surprised too, because I was all set to have him as a sleeper, and there he goes. He gets drafted early. So, but I'm glad he's worked out. Unfortunately, it will be for next year. Hopefully he'll come back and he'll be fine. So Howard now comes in. And so you do believe, though, so even though Howard kind of replaces Wally, that the secondary should be much improved from last year.
Oh, yeah. They haven't had a Mooney Ward. Like Ward is a guy who comes in and locks guys up. They haven't had a guy like that. Maybe, I don't know, that they've had a guy like that since they moved to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
This is a really good, competent cornerback where you just put him out there on that receiver, and then you got to figure out how to stop this one, and you feel pretty good about where you're at.
Yeah, that he's an underrated kid. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's out west, and there's so many other players with the 49ers to talk about that you just forget about talking about Ward.
And then last year he had some personal issues.
Yes.
He had a child that passed away, and that kind of understandably took his eye off the ball a little bit. And so getting this fresh start in Indianapolis is kind of critical for him.
And so the Colts defense is starting to come into shape because of the fact that we know that they're, at least on paper, now look, they need these edge guys to take that next step, but on paper, with that interior looking the way that it does, and with that, they can go too deep edge, and they even have this young kid out of Ohio State in the second round. That's looking like a pretty good unit as well. And the defense, after being a problem lately over the last year or two, is starting to take shape and maybe surprise people this year.
And it's kind of interesting the way this works with Leatu Latu being kind of a gamesman at edge, where he's quick and he's going to try to get the edge and he's going to try to feint guys and get past him. And then you got Tui Moloau from Ohio State, who you alluded to, and he's just a bull rush guy going straight at a tackle. So depending on who you play week to week, you got one guy who can go into somebody with his hands and move him back, or a guy who can go around somebody who's kind of got a stout base, but then it doesn't move so very well. So they feel good at that position. Tyquan Lewis, Samson Ebukam is back after a torn Achilles last year. And so they feel really good about what they've got at edge. They're a little bit thin at defensive tackle, but when you've got DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, that's hopefully all those guys wind up playing 3 downs.
Yeah, the kid from Northwestern, I believe.
Yeah,
he has to take another step. Yeah, is that possible? Do you see that as a possibility, or has he just been a little bit disappointing in his development?
He's okay. The thing that he's got that other guys don't have is speed. But if you're the fastest defensive tackle, you're still not going to be able to catch a running back or a tight end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you need some big uns in the middle to be able to move guys, and Edibore really isn't that kind of guy. Johnson has played pretty well throughout camp, and so that's a good thing. Tim Smith, they're going to have to figure some things out. They've got a lot, like they got 5 tight ends, and nobody's really sure which, like Tyler Warren is easily the best, but you're not sure who they're going to keep. And then you got Goodson at running back, at a backup running back, but he's a little bit dinged up. So you're going to have to keep 4 running backs. And all of a sudden, if you're going to keep all these guys, then somebody's got to pay. And is that going to be the offensive line, the defensive line? Can you keep 10 defensive linemen? Can you keep 10? You can't keep 10 everybody,
That's true.
That's what they're talking about right now at this very moment at the Colts facility. Try to figure out what they're going to do with cuts.
And so we might see what we've been already seeing for the past week is a trade. You trade someone that might be valuable somewhere else, and they don't want to take a chance on another team picking them up like the Titans, especially with the Colts, and then you make a trade. So that's
Miller loves them picks. He says that often. And so if he can get a 6th-round pick for a guy that they were going to have to cut anyway, he's going to feel real good about that.
Offensively, so Freeland's out. How long is Freeland out for?
He's done. He broke his leg, and that's over. So, he's done for the season.
And was he going to be the top swing?
I don't think so. I think that Jalen Travis was going to be the top swing.
Okay.
He's looked pretty good. He moves pretty well. He's really smart. He's got that Princeton background, and then he transferred to Iowa State. So he's a brilliant guy. He moves pretty well. He's got good hands. You talk to Tony Sperano Jr., the offensive line coach, and he kind of lights up when he talks about Jalen Travis. So you've got Travis as a swing tackle. And then on top of that, Tenuta, maybe. I haven't looked at a lot of Tenuta. I just kind of assumed it was going to be Freeland and Travis. But I haven't seen Tenuta play enough to know whether he's ready or not. We'll see.
Well, hopefully they keep everybody healthy, and the Colts offensive line has been healthy at times over the years. So, and they're set now. Their offensive line, top to bottom, looks promising.
I think so. At right guard, they've got Matt Gonsalves. And Matt Gonsalves played on Saturday. And that makes me think that they're not necessarily settled at right guard.
Oh,
They
sure.
still wanted to see some more from Maconsalvis. And they do have guys like Dalton Tucker, who's played a gob at right guard over the years and did last year. Yeah, they've got Wesley French, who is not a bad option at right guard. So I think they're still kind of evaluating that right guard position, but everywhere else they're set.
Okay. Now talk about the depth. You mentioned it before at running back. So do we have an idea of the pecking order after Taylor?
I think it's Taylor, Goodson, Giddens, and Herbert.
Just like we have it here. Okay.
Like Goodson, I thought, well, they didn't have anything else to do with him, so they brought him in for camp. But he just kept looking really, really good, both against the Colts and then against the Packers. He just had some bursts that maybe he hasn't had in the past and looked like a guy who's really going to be able to maybe be the primary backup to Jonathan Taylor. And we'll see what happens with that injury. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. But Giddens hadn't looked bad either. Giddens looks pretty good.
Okay. And yeah, Herbert, what's the problem with Herbert? Because I remember seeing him in Chicago when we got his opportunity to play. He was a really good young prospect, and he showed that, if you put him in there maybe full time, something would develop, but it just hasn't. And he always got pushed over by Rashawn. Oh, they drafted Rashawn Johnson. And so I always wondered why, and I don't know whether it's pass protection or he's just not the smartest guy in picking up the offenses. I don't know. What have you found out about why Khalil Herbert hasn't been able to figure out how to be the number 2 running back on this team, even though talent-wise he should be?
Throughout OTAs and mini camp and then training camp, my eyes just never went to him. You know what I mean? See, you never watched and said, "Ooh, look at that. Look at the burst on that guy." There was just nothing remarkable about him. And so I dismissed him. Goodson looked so good.
Yeah.
Giddens looked like he was better kind of every practice. He was, starting to digest the offense a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And so I kind of put Herbert out of mind until Goodson gets hurt. And then all of a sudden you're like, crap. Then who's going to be the third guy if Goodson can't be that guy? And you kind of land on Herbert by default.
So if Goodson, and right now, like you said, you have no idea what his timetable is, but if Goodson was ready to go week 1, do you think Herbert would be on the team?
Sometimes they keep 4 running backs.
Okay.
They do weird things with the roster. I really don't understand. Maybe it's just a matter of who they think they can stash on the squad, who's going to slip through waivers and be able to be squatted. But
do they like any of those CFAs?
Do I like any of the
Did you have any of those undrafted free agents stuck out? Bentley, Noel, Wright?
The one that did look okay and has looked okay is Jonathan Edwards.
Oh, on defense. Okay.
Yeah. At corner. He looked pretty good. The one guy offensively who looks pretty good is Coleman Owen. I talked to an NFL guy yesterday about what he saw on Saturday from Owen, because I'm I'm trying to figure out whether they're going to keep Anthony Gould or Coleman Owen. And the guy said, I would keep Gould, but I got to tell you, the more you watch Owen, the more you see Julian Edelman. He's got kind of that stature, that kind of quickness, that understanding of the offense. Coleman Owen was a guy at Ohio who put up like crazy numbers as a receiver last year. And throughout camp and throughout the preseason, you saw why. Like I was talking about Herbert, your eyes just never going to him. With Owen, like your eyes were always going to number 3, as they did just any kind of work.
Sure.
The guy grinded through every drill, and when Richardson or Jones or Leonard threw him the ball, his catch radius for being not the longest armed guy, he caught everything that was to him. And really looked like a guy who is very, very adept at creating space, despite the fact that he doesn't have great top-end speed. I like Coleman Owen a lot as a punt return guy because he's sure-handed. I don't give a damn if a guy can bring back a punt for a touchdown. I don't care.
Yeah.
You have got to catch the ball.
That's right.
If you turn it over,
that up.
Yeah, if you turn that over once in a season, you're really putting your team behind the 8 ball. And Coleman Owen is not going to drop punts ever.
Yeah, Owen's one of those guys that when I was looking at, you understood why he wasn't going to get drafted because he's not that big and he's not that blazingly fast. So you're like, oh, of course he's not going to get drafted. But like you said, when you watch him on tape, you're like, and you even saw him in the All-Star game, you're like, this kid's pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is how a CFA makes a team though, because he's not going to wow you at the combine, but he's just a football player. And so that was a really good comparison that you made there. Of course, the Patriots are infamous for those guys. So
if I was an opposing GM, if I were any of the other 31 guys and I didn't have a wide receiver position locked down, like a fifth wideout, and he was waived by the Colts, I'd name him in a second.
Well, what about that receiver room? Because is there any opportunity? Is there any way that the Colts would trade like Alec Pierce?
Well, it depends on we've heard nothing about the negotiations. He's going to be a free agent after the season. And a rumor that I've heard, which is pretty, I tend to believe it, is that Pierce has been offered an extension, but has declined.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's true. I don't have that like locked in by Pierce or by an agent. But, Alec Pierce knows that he's only got one trip through this career. And this is a team that hadn't been able to land on a quarterback who could consistently get him the football. And I think he looks at that. He's coming off a season where he led the NFL in yards per catch. That looks like it's not going to happen again because I don't think they got a guy who can throw him the ball in a place where he can get a bunch of yards.
Yeah, maybe that's why a trade would make sense. If they're going to go with Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce, doesn't he really just cancel out? Doesn't make much sense.
I would, if I had confidence that I'd be able to sign Pierce to an extension and I like what I've got otherwise, I would deal A.D. Mitchell. I would trade him. He just in practice, to me, the level of effort is uneven. And then he, against the Packers, lined up offsides. I haven't seen an offensive offsides in the NFL. I'm not sure if I've seen one in my life. Like in high school, you don't want to see a receiver on the wrong side of the line.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I see the official going like this and pointing to the offense, and I think, well, he made a mistake. And it negated a long gain from Richardson to Gould. And if that happens in the regular season, like you've already seen it in the preseason, and he was a guy last year who shied away from contact. Like when he was closely covered or he heard footsteps, he got alligator arms. And so I don't know whether you can trust him. Like they don't trust Anthony Richardson. That much is clear. I think there's every reason not to necessarily trust A.D. Mitchell, despite the fact that he has incredible talent.
Yeah, you can see it even here. Intensity switch appears to run hot and cold.
Yeah. He gets angry at things. Like if he's open and he doesn't get the football, you see some petulance. And I can live with that a little bit. But like last week in practice, he's kind of like dogging it through a route. And they throw it to him and he's covered because he didn't really cut sharp and didn't cut hard. And you think, okay, if he's going to take off reps in practice, they always talk about intensity, with the coaching staff, Ballard. It's always character and intensity and all of that. I don't see that out of this guy. So if somebody was enamored of the talent and thought that they could find a way to extract that from Mitchell, maybe they give up a draft pick that these guys would think, all right, you know what? Let's go.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Of course, what they'll do is they'll trade Pierce and move Mitchell into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Okay. Tyler Warren. Is he developing as planned?
I don't know if he's developing. I think that guy walked onto the field, the most talented player on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Like he was just unbelievable. The catches that he's made in camp, he made a catch. And it was in the joint practice with the Packers where he kind of got tangled up with a linebacker or DB and sort of lost his footing, but managed to stay on his feet long enough and have his hands in a place where Richardson threw the ball. Warren turned his head, the ball hit him in the hands, and he caught it. And I don't know how you do that. He is a really, really good blocker. He has a catch radius that's insane. He is a guy who, after the catch, is going to lower his shoulder and hit people hard. Like, that guy just looks like the best player on the field, and he has from day one. And you know what? If you're looking for another reason, if you're Alec Pierce, to think, okay, this might not be my cup of tea. Like last year, I think that the tight ends for the Colts caught 39 balls total. He's going to catch he may catch double that this year. And so, especially with Daniel Jones as your quarterback.
Yes.
And so, how many balls are going to be available to Pittman and Pierce and Downs? Although Downs is going to get fed again because he's an underneath guy.
Yep, you're right.
But like Warren being as good as he is would catch my attention if I was Alec Pierce.
Yeah, Pierce with this offense, be lucky if he gets like 2 catches a game.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what he'd be looking at. So
I'm 18 yards.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, with Daniel Jones. Yeah. Give me a breakout player on both sides, offense, defense, veteran player only, someone that you think can take that next step that you're excited about. Because
I think Jonathan Taylor is going to get the ball a lot, and he looks great. He looks better than he looked in 21 when he ran for 1,811 yards and had just over, I think he had 332 carries, if my memory's right. He looks fantastic in camp. Looks like he's ready to go. So he's my guy on the defensive side of the ball. And you know what? Having a guy like Tyler Warren who can block as well as he receives, that's going to keep kind of a defense soft a little bit. Like last year when they bring in Mo Alley-Cox.
Yeah, you know what was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. With Warren, not so much. So it's not like Warren comes onto the field and they load the box.
Yep.
So I think Taylor's going to be really, really good. And then defensively, I think Latu is going to be really good. I think that Anarumo knows you need to get to the opposing quarterback, and I think he's going to scheme it up in a way that kind of frees up Latu to get to the quarterback. Latu wants 1 sack a game. That'd be 17. That'd be a lot. But I think he gets a hell of a lot more than the 4 he put up last year.
All right. Now, let's take a look at here we are. Oh, I've got this on the wrong side of it. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to be taking a look now at the odds for the division first. Yeah. So the Colts are the 3rd choice. Are you surprised that they're the 3rd choice?
Not really. Because in this, like, even though Lawrence wasn't great last year and the Jaguars sucked, like, there's a reason to pick them. Like, these are odds if you're going to pick 1 out of the 4. I don't think that the Colts give you a lot of juice as far as, hey, I think the Colts are going to go win that division. Like when Tennessee, I see Tennessee now plus 650. They were plus 750. I thought the Titans at plus 750. I thought that was kind of interesting. If Ward can play, then they would be an interesting pick. But the Colts at plus 400, that's probably where they belong. I think they're going to win 8 games, and so that's kind of where you are with them.
So that's because the win total is 7.5.
Yeah.
So you're right there.
You're going to sweat it out at the end, but I think they'll hit the over.
So you're going with the over at 7.5, 8. Okay, but so you're calling 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, and what? Second, third?
Yeah, I think second.
Second.
Yeah, I only like Tennessee because it, plus 650.
Sure. That was,
the Jaguars, I think are overpriced at plus 300.
I agree.
I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, I think they would be a nice sleeper pick, but 3-1, second choice. That's relax a little bit. Right. I think there's a little bit too much Cohen juice. Like he's like some sort of wizard or something. He just did it once, just relax. He's, this Jaguars, there's a little bit more structure in Tampa Bay than there was in Jacksonville. That's for sure.
He thinks he's a wizard.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
That's halfway to being a wizard.
You got to believe in yourself.
You got to have the guys, right? Mike Ditka was a great head coach with the 85 Bears. With the New Orleans Saints,
not so much. Yeah. Okay, so then, so at Houston, is this definitely their division? They're just too talented, or is there a little bit of a weakness there that you see?
Well, their offensive line is terrible.
They are, yes.
So, that's going to make Stroud less good and less accurate. and that's going to be a problem for them. But that defense is stout. Like that's the best defense in the division, easy by far. And so is this division going to be so lacking offensively with every other team, which it could be, that it becomes a battle of the defenses? And if it is, then the Texans win.
Okay. Week 1. It's coming up real soon.
Yeah.
Colts are a 1.5-point favorite. And the one thing that sticks out to me in this matchup, being at home, is what's going on with how are they going to recognize Jim Irsay? And will that do you think at all that that's going to play into the emotion of the game, that there'll be a rallying cry, let's win one for Jim, that sort of thing?
I think that's more fan driven.
Okay.
Jim Irsay hadn't been in the building a lot for a long time.
Okay.
And so I'm not even sure how many of these players have gotten to know him on a personal level other than seeing his signature on their checks. You know what I mean?
He wasn't one of those owners that was really close to the team, the players, things of that nature.
He used to be.
Like
back in the day, back in the heyday, he was around a lot. And then he kind of withdrew and wasn't in the building a lot. Carly Irsay-Gordon has been in the building a lot for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So, and you always see her down on the sidelines with the headphones on and the little clipboard thing. I think she's going to wind up being a very hands-on owner, but not to a fault. I think she's very smart. I think she's, again, not to a fault, but I think she's quite impatient. If people can't explain why their jobs are meaningful in that building, if she passes you in the hallway and says, "What do you do? And why is that important to me?" If you don't have a good answer, she might fire you that day.
I like that.
She's just not going to spend bad money. And so I think that she's going to find a way. This year, I think, is a really critical year for Ballard and Steichen. It would have been with Jim Irsay as the owner too. But I think especially now with Carly running the show, that becomes exceptionally critical that they find their way to some success. And that's got to start with the owners. They haven't won a season opener since 2013.
Oh, whoa, wait a second. I got to write that down. Wow, 2013.
Since Anthony Richardson, I think, was a 6th grader.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a hell of a trend. So what's over 12 or something like that? That's
they
a long
streak.
streak
In there. So there's that for him. But
okay. Yeah, I think that might be a little bit more important than the Jim Irsay one I'm up with. Okay. So, and how's the schedule? Was that part of the reason? Is it good? Is it okay? There's nothing really to it. That's not really going to affect whether or not you think that there'll be a playoff team or not.
I think they better make hay in the front half because you got the Titans twice. You got the Dolphins. You've got the Raiders. A roadie against the Rams. You got Arizona at Lucas Oil Stadium. A roadie against the Chargers. I think really if you're going to make the playoffs, you got to start at minimum 5-3 and maybe 6-2 because the back half gets tough. There you got the Steelers, you got the Falcons, you've got the Chiefs, Texans twice, Jaguars twice, Seahawks in Seattle, 49ers. That's a monster.
Yep. Good point.
A lot of these guys have never played in Seattle. And I'm sure and everybody watching has an understanding. Things are just different there. Sound has texture in Seattle in a way that it doesn't anywhere else.
And it's almost completely on the other opposite end of the country too. So you're not used to that. Kent, what are you up to nowadays as far as the channel is concerned? It's all Colts, I would guess at this point. You also talking a little bit about college football too?
Indiana football's big. It hasn't been, but last year with Kurt Cignetti coming to town, it became big, going 11-2, going to the college football playoff, an unbelievable first season. But we talk mostly about the Colts, and we do it every day. We do 2 shows a day, Breakfast with Kent at 6:40 in the morning every morning, and then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on workflow. We have Inside Indiana Sports now.
Okay.
And it will, like Steichen's going to talk to the media at 3 o'clock today on a Zoom. We'll have that up as soon as it's done. We'll post that. But it's, what we try to do, like the way I see the channel is great sports coverage without any of the management screwing it up by taking talent into meetings and wasting their time in other areas. This is just like coverage, and that's it. We marshal all our resources toward doing the job we're supposed to do, and none of them toward what we don't do.
That's awesome, Kent. You going to be at all the games?
Oh, yeah, I'll be at the homes. And then I think I'm going to go to Pittsburgh. They've got that Falcons game in Berlin. Like, I'm not going to Berlin in my lifetime unless I've got an excuse like this.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe
How much would that cost you? How much would that cost a fan to go to a trip like that?
$3,000.
Wow. Okay.
Going out there with the flight, the hotel, even the media rate at the hotel, like getting there on Thursday. So you fly Wednesday night, land Thursday, and you come back on Monday. Yeah, it's $3,000.
How many fans do you? I mean, do you know how many Colt fans went there the last time they were overseas?
They went to Frankfurt, and it was actually quite a bit. And they've gone to London before. We travel well. Colts, not like the Steelers. Like the Steelers travel like it's their job. People will go into debt to follow the Steelers on the road. And that doesn't happen here. But there'll be a few thousand at least who go to Berlin, and there'll be like those junkets, those packages that you can buy, and they'll take full advantage of that.
Any chance at all? I'll close with this. Any chance at all that if they move on from this coaching staff, that Kirk Cignetti becomes is he too old?
Talk to him. I don't know. They went down that road. Bobbers say went down that road with Frank Kush. Went to the kind of hard-edged college guy.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's a different time. Different time. Yeah, that was different. I remember him. Yeah, he wouldn't last.
I don't think so. No. I love him down at IU. Hell, they're paying him. I think they're paying him $8+ million a year down at IU.
Okay.
So I'm not sure the Colts want to dip really large.
That's true.
In Carly's purse to go get another coach.
Well, this is going to be an exciting season for Colt fans, just because again, there's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, and so I think they're happy about that. I would guess they want some changes. Things don't work out, and then the offseason could also be very exciting under new management if possible. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they have an incredible season that we're not thinking about. They win the division, everybody stays, and we'll talk about that. I'll look forward to talking to you during the season. Maybe there'll be a couple of games that we might be able to get your insight on. And best of luck with the channel as always, Ken. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you very much, Greg. My pleasure.
You got it. Take care, Ken.